what your choices have been and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed. The light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery. I'm here again with Renee Taintor to talk about some Q's and AAs about the last Frequency Writer transmission that came through in October 2020, all about its roars and that the Great Awakening is here. And the central theme of that latest transmission was about the breath and conscious breathing and vibrational discernment. And I want to thank you, Renee, for joining me today. I'm so happy to be here with you.
My pleasure.
Let's get into it. There's definitely a lot of parcels of energy in this transmission, as there is in every single one. And maybe
there are so many, and I wrote down some questions.
Oh, good. Well, let's get into it. Why don't you start us off by, just sharing from your heart kind of what came up for you.
So this is the first time that I've heard the guides say something about inviting us to the lived experience. The lived experience of the vibrational frequency of the 5D, the truth of who we really are, our wholeness, our oneness, and our connectedness. So I was thinking, well, you have to believe that it's there first before you can invite it in, right? But then I thought, well, if source is breathing us, like it's the other thing it said in there, how does that work? I mean, isn't everybody receiving those energies, or do you have to be breathing consciously in order to receive it?
You ask such good questions because, again, let's remind ourselves that everyone listening to this, and you and I right now in this conversation, we're multidimensional beings. So everything that we receive or we hear or we read, we sense in some way, our 3D self can hear that. Our ego selves and our mental minds can hear that. And then there's the higher dimensional selves, and we're infinite, creative, multidimensional beings. And so when we're in our multidimensional soul presence and we're listening to something like that, and we hear that source is breathing us, there's a moment inside us where we are just absolutely just feel that. Let's go beyond the mind for a second and just feel that source is breathing you, right? Source is always flowing, ever present inside you, breathing life force through you, breathing your infinite multidimensional self that you've always been. It's breathing that into your cells all the time. It's omnipresent. There's an energy to that that's so life force giving. But if we flip, this is so good what we're doing right now. Then if we say source is breathing me. So what does that mean? Does that mean I am source? Or can you see the difference? Like there's this energy of there's part of the journey we're in this quantum ascension right now is to learn how to live more vibrationally, where we don't need to analyze it. We just are it. And if something's not in resonance with how we're being that energy, then it just passes on through and it doesn't stick. It doesn't hang out with us.
We get so accustomed to being in the fears that we're in the energy of trying to manipulate the people and situations around us so that we can get what we want, that this idea that the energy of the higher vibration is omnipresent, and that it's almost like walking into a space where there's a mist, and that mist is feeding you.
Yeah.
It's healing you. and it's raising you up, raising your vibration. And so it's like, that's pretty amazing. I mean, that is like, and that at the beginning it says it's all coming from the Grand Central Sun portal.
Yes, and there are so many beautiful people, online, on YouTube, on these alternative platforms that talk about our galactic history, right? But when we lived in fifth dimensional realms previously, and we all have lived in higher dimensional places and spaces. The central suns, especially here on Earth, were informing us. There is a divinely designed Earth experience where we're one with the Earth Mother and we're one with our Mother, Father, God, and we are the offspring, we are the child, we are the being, the product of that love, truly. And when you have the central suns supporting us, and you have that mist of the quantum frequencies of this omnipresent, exponential, infinite realm of love and unity consciousness, everything is aligning itself. Everything is divinely manifesting with precision and perfection. And I know that most people listening can say, well, I'm not living that, right? We've been trapped in a prison planet doing time, in a 3D matrix of separation consciousness. And so to access those mists, we have to admit at some level that it's been quite traumatic to be in this realm. And we had to learn how to use our other resources that the 3D matrix has given us, which is to elevate our mental minds to the level of God. We have deified the ego mind, because when we lost our connection with source and the central sun portals and the quantum frequencies and the mists of divine love and reunion and union, well, then our minds had to be empowered to figure it all out. And that's why it's always trying to calculate, manipulate, linear time, plan everything, have all of these goals, because our mind feels like it has to make it happen. And if, that's how we get into corruption and the slippery slope of, if I need to win, you just have to lose. And it's just the way that it is. And the world isn't fair. And all of these things we've been raised to believe and conditioned to believe is the way it is. What many of us, especially you and me, Renee, in a podcast like this, are here to remind people of the mists of the omnipresence, of the divine breath that's inside us, that has always been breathing us. But when the mind wanted to take over and say, no, thank you, I breathe me, right? I breathe me, and I choose how much I breathe, and I decide whether I breathe at all. The ego mind wants to say, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me.
Well, and then people, I mean, we weren't raised with higher vibrational thoughts. I wasn't raised to say, you are an infinite being. Everything you need for your life is inside of you.
Right.
You're connected to source. I mean, so we've had to learn this. And so people who, are waking up with what's going on right now, what kind of frame of reference do they have inside of them? Well, where, all you have to do is breathe, all you have to do is have the willingness. So I've been doing a lot of deep breathing, not only because of hearing this, because I want to consciously allow it, but because I'm feeling the need, as more and more things unfold, I'm feeling the need to take a deep breath and get centered in that energy. And so is it really that simple? I said this the last time, it is that simple. It's that simple that we're just going to breathe ourselves out of this more difficult scenario.
The arduousness of life, that hard work, that it's hard to breathe like this. It's hard. And that's part of this transmission too. We'll talk about it, where they talk about, I can't breathe. But I want to go back to, is it really that easy to just believe and be there? In our multidimensional selves, there are aspects in all of us that know it's infinitely more simple than the simplest way we can understand that. Source has made it so simple for us, but it is the gripping ego mind that was pretty terrified when whatever circumstance in whatever original lifetime, we all had our core root wounds. And the core root wound is when we experienced ourselves disconnected from source. Imagine being these loving beings with the omnipresence of source energy inside us. And one day, one lifetime, somewhere, something cuts the cord. You know, there's an experience, whether there's a dis-ease that takes over your body and an illness like you've never experienced. You didn't even know that illness like that was even possible, and it ravaged your body, and maybe it took out your entire civilization. We all have core root wounds, something like that, where we were betrayed, whether we were tempted into corruption. We were omnipresent, and we were living in the midst of that level of love and that divine breathing and that divine design that was perfect. And we were the product of Mother Earth's love and the divine source creator's love. We are that manifestation of that level of infinite expansion and total love and light. And then we had these traumas, and every one of ours is different, but the same, it's the core trauma is the same: separation from source. Finally, for the first time, source didn't have our back. For the first time, we experienced ourselves without that source infusion of divine breath. And it's like it took our breath away.
Lifeline.
That shock took our breath away, right?
Yeah.
And we just in that experience, in the shock of that, trying to breathe. And then the ego was, elevated to the level of God somewhere in that experience and in subsequent lifetimes. And we've gotten really good at having the ego control all of our functions, our physicality, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. A lot of these things are very ego dictated because we have believed, and look at our educational system, look at our world, look at debates, on the global scene right now, right? It's just ego. It can be very egoic bantering. That's what and you look and you say, where is God? Like, where is God in that debate? Where is God? And it's in there. Because source is breathing those beings that are debating, whether they know it or not. And at the end of the day, which is what comes through the transmissions all the time, the truth withstands scrutiny very well. It is a timeless, eternal essence and an omnipresence inside us. But the key, and we'll go back to this, is the allowing. Somebody who's in a place of depression, anxiety, they feel triggered, they're scared, they don't understand what's going on with this virus, they don't understand what's happening with the world, maybe they're laid off, maybe they, it's just a very uncertain time from a 3D perspective. And it's hard to feel like the omnipresence of God breathing you and blissing out in that amazing energy and mist and divine love when you are in this lower vibrational place. And so I have been in that lower vibrational place. I don't know if you have, Renee.
Oh, I have.
I've certainly
Get there because of all of me listening to these messages for a year and a half or whenever now. I trust the light, because let the light lead was one of the one-liners, which I consider these one-liners are tools that we can use when we find ourselves in that lower vibration or in that fear where you're just going, oh man, this does not look good. This is not good. Or it's not looking good with what's going on with people in your life. And you don't have the solution and you don't know what to do or anything. I just go back to those one-liners. Let the light lead. Source is breathing you. Just be willing, just do the conscious breathing. And also in this transmission was the added that, breathing it in we had before, but now we're breathing out the lower vibration. So you breathe in the higher vibration stuff and breathe out the lower stuff. So that makes me want to know, so increasingly the energies have gotten stronger, right? Increasingly the vibrations are higher. They have to be if we're rising up, right? So,
and there's a lot of cosmological energy. I mean, there's a lot of planetary energy, astrological energy, and there's so many fabulous people that people can tune in talking about that side of things. I don't know that as well, but I can feel it. I can feel those planets moving us. I can feel that divine energy orchestrating and realigning us. So if we've been in an illusion that's all kinds of distortions, basically, right? And we've been in the pain of separation from our original core root wound when we separated from source, we are realigning. And that means also the cosmology and astrology is realigning to allow the central sunlight to pour in. It did not, that itself didn't have the direct access in this 26,000 year cycle. When we haven't been able to breathe here very well, it's because truly our divine source oxygen and prana has been less accessible to us because of the filters in this matrix, because of the distorted codes in this matrix. So yes, more light is infusing the planet, more prana is infusing the planet. And the more we can be willing when we're in that really low place. I remember I was in a place where I just felt like I could barely breathe through the next minute, then the next 5 minutes, then the next hour. And I had about a 5-year experience of that. For anybody that's listening, the only way we are sharing on a podcast like this and talking about these things in the way we're talking about them is because we've journeyed through them to some extent, and no one gets a free pass. So we all have to go through this.
you can't skip ahead.
Yeah.
The only way forward is through it. And for me, I don't know about anybody else, but it might be helpful to mention that, I'm on this continuous journey. It doesn't just happen when I decide to think about it. No, so it's not just source breathing me, but source is like in my mind, in my heart. I'm seeing things differently. I'm expressing things differently. I'm pulling back. I'm pulling back a lot on a lot of things. I'm feeling the need to spend a lot of quiet time. I mean, I used to be distract myself with things. Oh, I'll do this and I'll do this. And now it's like, no, I don't want to do anything. I just need to be still, and I'm breathing and I'm sitting there and I'm almost like in the space of, allowing, but there's not anything going on in my mind. It's just like surrendering. That's what it is. It's just a surrendering to that energy and going, okay, yeah, I'm good sitting on the couch for a while,
Well, and I want to say this because it's really powerful. In the surrendering, that in the surrender, letting go to source to lead it, not just letting go to anything, letting go to source and the living light that emanates from source to lead you, because you're remembering it's better than anything else the little Renee can create on her own. When we start to,
that's what it is, just surrendering to source. I didn't think of it that way, but when I read that source is breathing me, thank you. Because the little self still wants to go, am I doing this right? Is this like I'm on track, right?
well, and that's where we've heard from many teachers and speakers through the centuries, but even our contemporary teachers and speakers and messengers. I'm somebody who doesn't believe you can get it wrong. I don't really believe even people, on the slippery slope who've chosen lots and lots of corruption this lifetime. You think about source in that omnipresence, knowing it's breathing us even when we don't know it in this realm, when we're trapped behind kind of a wall of glass or the veils of forgetfulness and we just can't remember. And some people, many people have made some exceptionally dark choices. And many of us have been on the slippery slope of we could have done this, but instead we made this choice and it didn't feel so good and it didn't show up for us very well. The consequences weren't very fun, but it's still all leading us back. Source has we can't even imagine it, a quantum level of faith and trust and knowing that everything is templated, creation is templated in the living light. And no matter how far you think you can get as the polar opposite of that, you're still created from the same essence that created you and your soul presence in the first place. So
it's all oneness. It's still happening in the oneness. And at the tail end, it was so good to hear that from the guides at the tail end of the last transmission.
yeah,
Was, so do you honestly think my divine plan for my cosmic children would be to live like this on a planet with the struggle and the disease and the separation? Do you really think that's my plan? So that helps me, another tool to let go and just go, you know what, whatever it looks like, whatever it feels like, I'm in the right place because I know my heart, because it's my will. And it's my heart that is leading me, whatever I have to go through,
right.
whatever pain or whatever confusion or whatever I have to go through, I am so willing, because this is the journey to get us physically out. We're already mentally out. We've already chosen with our consciousness. In fact, they said that in this transmission, that we've already chosen, the collective already chose to live in peace, to live in love and oneness and helpfulness and brotherly love and all that. We've already made that choice. So if you know that, and all you have to do is look at your own heart. Shoot, I made that when I was 8 years old. So we have to trust that the light and the source energy and everything is leading us. It's just that you can't just go by what you look at and what you hear and reactions to people.
And understanding that our ego filters are never going to see source energy, what it really is. It's the filtration system is the limited perception that it can't see it, feel it, know it.
Right. The ego can only see so far.
And yeah.
And that's why in my work with the Solution Revolution, I learned the distinction between the ego left brain, left mind mindset and the divine mindset, which is infinite, and it feeds you and it helps you and nourishes you and expands you. But the ego mind will take credit when you're up and kick you when you're down.
So well said. It will, exactly. And that way, what happens, it's always in control. It's always controlling you when you're, praising you when you're up and kicking you when you're down.
You're in that space.
And it's exhausting. It's how it creates its, perpetual tension inside you, because it keeps you looking and seeking the up, but it's also ready to assail you when you're down, right?
It can't get the up without getting the energy from somebody else. That's why the energy game. And I really liked how the guide said in this transmission that, well, how do you know if you're in, how do you know if you're letting source breathe you, or how do you, I forget the exact words.
Yes.
If you're feeling depleted in this energy, if you're feeling depleted in your day, then you are not allowing source, you've like turned away or whatever. And so it's a good, and that's actually the same, well, different words, but the same tool I use to find out which mindset I was in. Because if I was feeling anxiety or fear or worry or angst or whatever, then I was in the ego mindset, and the ego, and allowing it to drive me.
Right.
Instead of being in the divine mindset and allowing it to drive and fill me up, because any love that I express has to come through me. So I'm feeling it first as it goes out, as I channel it out. I'm feeling it first because I was moved by my heart. I moved in my heart. I choose to follow the divine guidance of the heart, and I feel that love as soon as I'm expressing it.
And that divine mindset, in your language, which I love, that is a state of allowing. That's what grace is.
Oh, yes. It's
It is.
so, I've never connected it like that, Marie. Yes.
It
Because
is.
in order for you to be in your divine mindset, you have to let go of what's going on in front of you. You have to let go of your ego going, that person needs to be told this.
Right.
I need to go over there and slap them. They, and so if in the divine mindset, it allows everything because it has the confidence of knowing that source is breathing everything.
That's exactly. And if we are all creators of the creator, we're in a process right now. We're all somewhere in that journey of remembering this again. And so when somebody is saying something that you don't resonate with, we don't have to necessarily correct them. We can choose how we show up in that, but there is this quiet strength. It's like the lion energy, it's the lion medicine, it's that themes of the Lion's Gate portal. And the lion can roar. I mean, that's an option. We can roar and like blow in the face of people that we don't resonate with.
Right.
But we can also call in the light codes of those golden central suns, and we can feel that divine backup, and we can breathe, and we can also become aware of where their attempt to have power in whatever way is going on in the energy game with you and that person. When you're connected to source power and you're reuniting in that, mother, father, child dynamic relationship with the earth mother, with mother, father, God, and with you in that perfect trinity, and you power up and you pay attention to where you feel weak, where you feel vulnerable to that person's energies. When we do the vibrational work, this gets into deeper conversations, but there's vibrational work to clear out the places inside us where we have wounds, with people triggering us. It's our wound that dynamic is showing us. But when we understand that we're a work in progress, and we understand that source has always been breathing us, and source knows that literally our breath can put us in a 3D timeline, or it can put us in that higher fifth dimensional soul presence. And there are so many dimensions. We're not limited to 3D and 5D, there's so many. But when we tap into that infinite, eternal, divine essence inside us, it's a choice. And that's when our power, like, I would imagine somebody could heal all their lifetimes and wounds in one breath. I don't know how that would work out, but in one breath, letting it all go and just say, I totally 100% fall back into the arms and heart of source. And I know I'm
This is the first time I heard the guides say, breathe in that breath and heal those lifetimes and heal all of them. That's the first time. So that's what makes me think, well, then that means that the energies are way higher. And yes, I signed up for that. I am breathing in and breathing out, and consciously. So consciously means, okay, I'm aware, I'm breathing deeply, filling my lungs and my belly with that source energy and source light, breathing out all the old programs, all the pains, all the hurts. And so I want to say this, because this is real. Talk about allow. And I've said to you more than once, Marie, over the last couple of years that, whose brilliant idea was it to do this anyway down here on this planet? And because if we're all beings and we all had a choice and we all said, yes, let's do this, let's suffer, let's do this, that I've had to just say, okay, well, no amount of you resisting that is going to change where you are. And so for whatever reason, I trust the reason we all decided to do it. Do I know? No. Do I like it? Oh, hell no. But I trust the reason that as a collective, as a cosmic race, that we chose to do this. Because I used to say, well, if you had an infinite to experience, if you had infinity to experience life, why wouldn't you want to experience being a monk or a cat or a dog? Or why wouldn't you want to jump into all of that creation and experience it? So evidently someone said, well, let's try this. Okay, well, I hope we never do that again, ever, anywhere in the cosmos.
Just to be clear, never.
just to be real clear about that. But I am willing to do the dance and do my part. And I've been doing it for a really long time, led by my heart that loves everything, the known and the unknown. That is the divine heart that I have prayed for, the cosmos, the known and unknown. I don't even know what's out there. I know some of it because of Star Trek, Star Wars, but it doesn't mean that my love isn't going to reach out there, whether it's right or wrong, and love it anyway, because that's who I am. And I'm made from that source energy, and my heart is driving me. It's driving me to feel the pain of things in my life, to accept it, to forgive, to allow, to continue to move forward in love, instead of saying, I give up, screw everybody. No, that's not a choice for me, because love makes me feel good, even in the pain. Because that love transcends all your pain, all your confusion, all your fears. It transcends, it wraps your arms around your entire psyche, energy, bodies, all your bodies. You are wrapped in it. You're wrapped in it. You're being led, you're being comforted, you're being shown things you didn't know, you didn't want to see. And then you're comforted again and healed. And so that's what this dance is. We're doing it and we're all moving through it. And some of us kicking and screaming, and some of us just going, yeah, that hurt, but okay, what's next? Move on. Continue to love, continue to hold the highest thoughts for everybody on the planet, every person, every blade of grass, every animal, every little bug. That's what that divine heart is, and it's in me. So be it.
Well, and that was so beautiful what you just shared. And I feel all that you just shared. I hope our listeners can really tap into that. And we've all had those feelings of like, I never, ever, ever want to experience this again, which means we've journeyed, we've satiated in the experience, and we're coming out the other side. It's the full circle timeline now, where we're jumping timelines. And I just want to give for our listeners right now, it's just an easy way, and I like easy when I can find easy, an easy way to understand this 3D matrix, this separation experiment, this separation experience that we've all been journeying for all this time, is it's like if you were in high school, right? And you do get an invitation to audition and try out for the school play, right? And in the play, there's going to be villains and heroes or whatever. And when we were invited to this separation experience and we wanted to try on all these costumes, right? Being a monk and a dog and a cat and the things that you were saying, right? And a prophet and, a pirate and a Viking and all the things that we've played out. Doesn't that sound fabulous? Like, why are people in theater? I mean, it's so fun to play all these characters. And when we saw that invitation, because even our ego minds might judge that, we were like, that sounds fabulous. And when we were,
I got this.
Right, I got this. And you heard there's going to be a costume coordinator and a choreographer, and there's going to be, stage managers, and, there was going to be no limit to what you could try on and play for a while. And that goes for, basically the Jesus Christ figures, the Buddhas, those people who came and incarnated in that way. And that goes for, the deepest, darkest, most sinister, corrupt beings that have played their role, and every hash mark in between. There's a costume for everyone. And we like that. But I think also what has happened is in this matrix, there's been numerous influences between the astrology, cosmology, and some other races. There's intergalactic wars going on that most people don't have an understanding of. And it's like if you were to try out for the play, but then you find out you're in Nazi Germany. Well, I didn't say I wanted to be in a play in Nazi Germany.
I changed my mind.
Right. I don't want to do that. And so, and that's kind of how it's been, is that what seemed like this fun theater experience, if we would just call it a fun theater experience, well, that sounds fun from a soul perspective. And we're going to play out all these roles with each other. And even the villains in the play, they're not actually really doing those things. It's just the theater. But then something happened, and this matrix got more and more infiltrated by darker energy, and we went to these extremes of energy. So we had more extreme light and more extreme darkness, and more of an extreme of forgetfulness. And the longer we incarnated here and we got trapped on the loops here, we forgot how to breathe. We forgot that this was even a theater. We forgot that we said yes. We forgot. And we've also lost perspective that I think what we've thought we signed up for also changed to some degree over time and has gotten out of control.
Yeah.
And source, when we manifested this experiment or whatever, creation is always expanding itself. So source is the essence of allowing. Source is the essence of allowing. And so we were allowed to create this experience, and it's been allowed to go, to create itself in all the directions it has. And as it's gotten more and more extreme, we felt more and more contracted and stuck here and trapped here and forgetting how to breathe and forgetting who we are and forgetting any kind of lifeline that's going to lead us back to who we truly are. And now, thankfully, the cosmology and astrology is cycling back. It's cycling back full circle. And there's so many incredible events happening where the light is shining in, and no matter how much the nefarious plans of the darker villainous characters are doing pretty dark, nefarious things, we are returning to who we really are, and the theater is over and the illusion is on the grand stage. And so we're coming back, and that's why the breathing is one of the first things to come back to us, because that is the basic truth of our essence. Source is breathing us all the time. It was breathing us in every costume we've ever played, but now it's breathing us to wake up beyond the costumes. And I'll say this, is that it's breathing us to know that we each have a role to play in the wake up process. Now we can no longer comfortably stay asleep and do nothing and be complicit and compliant in an out of control theater matrix of 3D pain and suffering.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to keep in mind another tool is that anything that is not in harmony with that divine love and light that is all over us, that's omnipresent, anything that is not in harmony with that will not be supported. That means in your own life, in your relationships, in your business, in the governments, in families, in everything. There isn't a person around that isn't affected by the light shining and showing you where you're out of harmony.
Exactly.
And so we are being breathed, but we're also kind of being nudged forward, I think, to because we've been so left brain and so in our head so much that something's going to have to make sense to you before you'll drop down to your heart. So many people.
Right. There has to be something that catalyzes the beginnings of letting go.
Right.
Letting go is starting to release ego and no longer deify that as what truly guides us and aligns us with who we are, because that's been the illusion. And yet that's the most terrifying thing to most people. If I don't have that, how am I going to navigate these stormy waters, right?
Well, and the thing is, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people have sources to fact check. Well, some of the fact check sources,
right?
And like, how do you find the truth? And I think you just stay present, trust your intuition, trust your spirit inside of you.
And what a lot of people call their intuition, though, is really like egoition. It's not their true.
So what would it be? Your instinct, your gut?
Even those things can be very egoified in a way, very egoic. And so This is what we talk about, and I, in many of the transmissions, but also in any of the podcasts that I'm doing, it's about the hero's journey. We are this hero's journey. In fact, I just did a podcast with Paul Panzica that I'm going to be posting around the same time this comes out. It's fantastic. And let me see if I can get this right. He said something like, we are the mythology of the astrology. We are the, right, I thought that was amazing. We are the mythology, which is the epic hero. We are the hero journeying the astrology that is the blueprint of God. And all of those aspects are inside us. And so what's amazing is if we would allow ourselves, if we would become willing and allow, I'm allowing, and I allow through becoming willing. That's a first step, because not everybody can jump from total resistance or totally using their ego to guide their lives every single day to all of a sudden just falling back into the heart and arms of source and breathing in the divine mist. Like, it's a big chasm for a lot of people. So you learn over time. That's the epic hero's journey. And we have the astrology blueprint inside us. In all of our birth charts, we have all of the gods, all of the goddesses, all of the characters and all the stories that have come before us. They're living energies. They're showing us who we are in the theater of this realm. And we have to be willing to journey the hero's journey and start to release the ego mind that we have raised to the level of God to guide us, to know everything.
Well, and the ego is so strong that, remember, I've mentioned before that if you get a higher vibrational thought come into your mind and it goes around and around in your ego mindset looking for a place to land, and if it doesn't find a place, you usually kick it out. But do you remember I told you about a quote? I did watch the latest Thrive movie.
Yes.
And Kimberly Carter
Gamble.
Gamble. She's a co-producer of that. She learned something from her grandmother that is now a tool. Well, it's been a tool of mine, but she said that her grandmother told her that you're not gonna, I'm just paraphrasing, you're not gonna really learn much if you can't try something on. Like if you hear something, try it on. She said, you've got to be willing to suspend belief long enough to hold conflicting beliefs together so that you can explore what has the highest vibration or the highest good or whatever. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm where I am, is because I would always go, really, is that true? And then look at it. And sometimes it wasn't true. Sometimes, a lot of times it was. But so I think that the people, a lot of people are stuck in their ego mindsets. They have their pet thoughts and their pet beliefs that they are unwilling to let go of.
They can be a trap.
It's too fearful to think about that wouldn't be true, or it's too fearful to think that would be true. And, and everybody is running around. And I think there's an agenda out there that wants to keep you in that space of cognitive dissonance.
Yes. Well, if source powers and fuels the higher dimensional realms, what fuels the 3D matrix? It's our fear. It's our confusion. It's our separation.
Yes,
and so, and that's where if people can even understand that there is an agenda in the 3D matrix to keep us small and afraid and enslaved. And most people, like you said, and even like Kimberly Foster Gamble.
Kimberly Carter Gamble.
How she's saying that is that we have to be willing. It's like what the two wolves, that legend of the two wolves is showing us. It's a tool. It's exactly what she said. You have to be willing to look at the white wolf, look at the dark wolf, and know which one is showing you the higher vibrational essence that you are, which is that 0 point portal, that 0 point vision, that we're coming back out of the duality into a singularity again. And how we live that is, you can watch the debates, you can But if you're listening for where's the higher vibration, you're not listening for the words, and you're not listening to have your beliefs confirmed.
Validated, right?
The truth seeker and the epic hero knows that they're on a journey to uncover the greatest divine timeless truths and the essence of creation that they are expressing as the mythology of the astrology and all of that energy. They're on the journey to uncover the essence of source in everything.
You have to be willing to let go of the stuff you've been holding on to. You have to be willing to be able to say, I could be wrong about this.
Correct.
I maybe don't have a clear picture here.
Right.
I maybe only have a few pieces of information and I need a lot more.
And there's discomfort that comes up. There's uncertainty that comes up. There's unpleasantness.
You don't trust yourself because we weren't raised to trust ourselves.
Right. But what you realize, and with all that discomfort and things that come up that escort the hero in the hero's journey, you walk with discomfort, you walk with sadness, you journey fear, you go. And the reason they're the epic hero, the brave epic hero, is because they do walk with those things and they keep going. They keep seeking because they know also that they're ultimately going to find what they've always been, but they have to journey the unpleasantries, the triumphs, the failures, all of those things, because we have to shatter the beliefs of the 3D matrix. And until we're willing to peel back the onion, as Vanita Lakwala has said, to get to the sweet core, we go through tears, we go through pain and suffering, but people still peel onions. Like, I don't know many people on the planet that totally avoids onions their whole life, right? We can't avoid the onions of our lives. And that is part of this discernment process. And the breath is here to partner with us to say, that's source walking with you in every breath. Not just every moment or every day, every single breath, source is saying, I'm with you. I've got you. I'm here inside you. We have never been separated. I know who you are. That's what it's saying. And Mother Earth comes behind in the breath too. And they're breathing us, their children, helping us to wake up from the suffering. The suffering was not my best version and vision for you. The suffering was the illusion. And that's where we have to be willing to go through and say, I'll look at what I think is an untruth. I'll look at what I think is a truth. I'm willing to look at both of them and say, somewhere in here is the truest God energy of all time. But unless I'm willing to open up and experience more and more and say, I may not know what I think I know. I don't know what I don't know. And I have to go on the journey.
You don't know what you don't know. That's one of the first sentences I use in my teaching. You don't know what you don't know. So if you know that, then you're going to be more open. And also, I think it's important to realize that you're in charge of how you respond. So if to the things in your life, to the information you get, to the people that don't like what you stand for or whatever, you are in charge of how you respond. And so are the other people. So if you know your heart, I learned that a long time ago, your heart is your foundation. If you trust your heart, then you know that whatever you project out there, whatever you say, whatever who you are, can be trusted to not have the intention to hurt you or cause you pain or want you to suffer. So if you do suffer or have pain or any of that, the other person, then they're the ones that are interpreting it.
Right.
We don't have to take responsibility for how they respond to us. And conversely, if you get upset with somebody saying something, you're the one interpreting it. They're not, I mean, they just said something, but you're there and then you just took like one thing and made a whole picture and a whole dynamic and a whole everything. Right. That's why getting a clear picture is important. And that's what we're doing now with Source, getting a clear picture. Who are we really? Who are the people running the show on the planet? And so we are getting a clear picture. This Source breathing us is about getting an absolutely clear picture, which There's a lot of stuff in that picture we flat did not know, and people aren't buying it. And so,
Exactly.
I'm not responsible for you buying it. I'm barely buying it, right? I'm still learning what's true. And the only thing I can do when I hear things that surprise me and shock me is go to those tools in the divine mindset. Source is breathing me. The light is bringing harmony to anything that's not in harmony right now. The truth is coming out. The light is healing. The light is healing me. It's healing you. It's healing our families, our countries, our planet. And this is what it looks like when it's being healed. It's a lot of, and a lot of, and then a lot of people like us in the middle of our struggles and pain. We know that source is leading us. We know we're being led and guided and nurtured and fed and taken care of. And so that knowledge is power. It's the power for you to let go of that stuff that you might want to be afraid of. Don't be afraid of it. Yeah, it's there, but it's part of that dynamic that we are leaving because it doesn't fit us anymore. We are not in harmony with that. We want to be on the train where source is breathing us, where source is guiding us, and the light is leading us and bringing us to the truth of who we are, who our family is.
And it's the breath train. I mean, literally, that is our ship. That is what's literally, and that's the Merkabah. Really, what we're talking about is the Merkabah, which is, it's a whole sacred geometry. There's a lot of components to the Merkabah, but it's what helps us move interdimensionally. And it is the breath train. And so we are turning to these tools. There is a tremendous amount of disinformation, but the disinformation is not even necessarily the enemy. The disinformation is being perpetrated and perpetuated by an agenda of the Matrix and some puppets who play out those agendas so that we can have this theater. And we're no longer resonating with it. The earth is no longer resonating with it. But I want to point out the trap when you're not in that breathing, because breathing, we can say, is synonymous with allowing. When you're breathing, you're allowing source. When you're consciously knowing that you're breathing source inside you, you're consciously allowing source to move in your life in whatever way is highest good. That's a journey to live that. But it starts with those words. That's where I started in my deep, dark night of the soul, is I was in trouble. I was in a trap. I was in trauma. And I learned the words. I am willing. I am willing to feel better. I am willing to experience highest good. I didn't even know what highest good was then. Highest good is a prayer unto itself. That means source's best vision for me in my life in every moment. And so I had to learn I am willing. And when we're in that state of allowing, we are breathing ourselves into the new timelines. But when can you believe he said this? Can you believe she said that? And we're really biting the bait of the swirl of information and disinformation. It doesn't mean we don't have to see it and journey some of that two wolves, the battle between the two wolves some. But when you spend all your day, every day with the two wolves, when you spend all day, every day listening to the news, listening to getting saturated with the 3D matrix that can't breathe without the public's fear. The 3D matrix, they're talking about this, can't breathe.
That's amazing.
Can't breathe without our fear.
The matrix can't breathe without our fear.
It can't breathe. And so it's doing everything it can to engage us, distract us, hold our attention. People have the news on 24/7. I get notifications on my cell phone because I have an iPhone, and I don't know if it's Apple News, but there's always something coming up that's like trying to tell me their version of the news. I don't even choose that. Like if I could turn that off, I'll turn that off. I need to find out how to do that. I'm not interested. If I want to know something, I seek it from my vibration and I always find the answers. And that's been a journey, but you'll find most people are just receiving the narrative they want you to have to keep you in fear so you can't breathe. And if you can't breathe, right, your ego is going to take over. It's got to survive and it's going to figure out who to be angry with, who's to blame, who do you have to shame, who needs to go down so you can go up, right? Whatever those energies are. And that is just the trap of the matrix. And even there are light workers. There are people who know that we're here to ascend on this planet this time, but are somehow playing out consciously or unconsciously their roles in the duality game. And they're caught up in he said, she said, and the anger and their pain. But if we remember what Source is saying, it's easy. I'm breathing you. I'm with you. We're breathing this together. We're activating your Merkabah together. We're activating your soul presence together. And your soul presence is so much bigger than the fights and the debates and the division and the hate and the racial tension and the fear. And when you get just a little beyond the clouds of all the 3D storms in there, it's like clear sunshine up here, right? It is clear sun and the prana is free and clear. And if you can give yourself permission to allow to breathe, partner with Source in your breathing. If I was to give a definition, and I don't really like definitions, but if I was to give a definitional essence of conscious breathing, it's reuniting with Source. It's allowing Source to be the essence of you again. And that's a journey. I mean, it can sound really beautiful and high vibrational, and it is. But it is a journey to tame your ego and start treating it like a little child that needs guidance instead of the God that we've made it out to be. The ego is not God. It's really a false God in the illusion. And the ego is what's going to partner with the false narratives of the 3D matrix being perpetrated by the mainstream media right now, especially lots of sources, but especially the mainstream media. And that's trying to help us remember, oh, right, I can't breathe here.
Right. Well, the other tool that I use that I get when I'm, starting to freak out or whatever is Spirit will say, the bigger your picture, the easier your life. So if I'm like feeling like I'm being in that emotion of fear or whatever, Spirit will tell me, back up some more until you can see the big picture, till you can see your place. And I actually had a cloud before iCloud came out, before any of the clouds. I had a cloud that I would go up on the cloud and look down and see my life and see the planet. And sometimes the cloud would go up so I could see the whole globe, even big enough to where I could hug the earth, where I'm hugging the earth like this. But then the cloud, being up on that cloud, I would be able to see my life differently, like from the observer point of view, and say, okay, yeah, this is just a moment right now. Yeah, you're feeling that. So feel it because it came up, but know what it is. Know what it is, and that you can transform it with your, by breathing or by those tools that we've been talking about.
Yeah. And that brings up, and probably we should podcast about this sometime, about the power of choice. You only have the power of choice, really. Empowered power of choice is when you do zoom out, is when you do go into that bigger picture perspective and you do see from higher dimensional clear soul sight. When you're in it, and we all know what it feels like to be trapped in a job, in debt, in a relationship, in karmic contracts. We all know what that feels like, and it's not pleasant. Of course, you're going to make lower vibrational decisions with lower vibrational choices because that's all you see. React. I have to react to this. I have to put out this fire. And now I'm struggling with this. And then you want to tell all your friends about it. So the story keeps growing and getting bigger. And you're trapped on this linear earth timeline, this little I am, this little me presence. But when you're out here and you zoom above and you engage that witness observer and you're partnering with source in your breath, and you could feel all of creation is inside you.
You're living in the big picture when you're there. And so when I was doing the solution revolution, I saw that if you're living in your ego mindset, then you're in the energy game. And there's only so many options that you have.
It's very limited.
Because those thoughts are limited, and they're a reactive kind of thoughts. And that's why I call it, if you're in the energy game, you're a reactive creator. You're not really a conscious creator, because the things that the thoughts that the ego holds doesn't really give you the kind of options that's going to make your life easier. But when you live in the divine mindset, which is your heart, and it is the bigger picture, and the vibration is higher, and you are above the level of that lower energy game. And it's like that. Remember I told you that I got this analogy that you're in a tar pit with the rest of humanity, but the tar isn't affecting you. You can walk through it
right,
real easily. It's not even a struggle. But everyone else is like trudging and doing this, and then the rest of society supports it. The society supports the energy game.
Because we have a belief that the 3D matrix is all there is because of the original wound. If you believe that source left, there is nothing else. No one's coming to save you, honey. That's kind of that, like, you're on your own. And then you resonate with struggle. You resonate with the tension.
Right.
You resonate with the game.
Well, and it's do unto others before they do unto you.
Right.
It's dog eat dog. And the people who make it, and the other people, oops, sorry, sorry, your life sucks, that kind of thing. And I just always had a problem with that, even as a little girl.
Right.
I was like, something is wrong with this picture here.
Right. And here, I haven't changed it out in a while. Hawk has just stayed there. Hawk has that bigger picture perspective. Is that acuity vision. And when you were talking about that, of course, we're looking at that bigger picture, and it's 2020 clear soul sight. It's time for clear vision. And when you breathe, I'm not talking that people have to go to a breath class. I'm sure you can make that choice, but you can just consciously say, I'm willing for source to breathe me. I'm knowing source is breathing me. And if that's too much of a leap, you can go back to I'm willing to feel source breathing me, and that higher, bigger perspective and the quantum essence that I am.
And that will put you right in the big picture. And it's also important to understand that when you live in that big picture, the bigger your picture, the easier your life. You respond differently.
You do.
You think differently. You see things differently. You hear things differently. You are different because you're in a higher vibration when you're in that bigger picture. And so I see people like us that choose to live in the big picture more, that it's a dance. You can't live in the big picture 24/7. I mean, I can most of the time, but sometimes I'm back in that ego mindset briefly until I go, oh, I'm not feeling so good. What am I experiencing? Let's get back to the big picture. Sometimes it takes a couple days to get back to the big picture, right? But it's important to understand that when you're there, that's when you can hang out there and you are part of the solution.
Yeah.
Because you're not engaging in any lower vibrational reaction.
You recognize it for the trap that it is, and it's never ever going to deliver to you and through you
That's right.
Goodness that you want to feel. It's never.
I didn't even realize when I was learning about big picture living that was actually the place where I was creating and co-creating peace on earth.
Yes.
Because I'm creating it in myself by letting go of the lower things, by allowing, loving the people, because I learned how to see the divine in everybody. And if you do that, then you realize that strangers are family you haven't met yet.
Right.
And so living in that big picture is a win-win. That's why I called it the solution revolution, because when you live in that big picture, not you are your own solution, but because you're not engaged in the energy game in the lower matrix ego mindset, they're not, that matrix is not getting your energy.
Correct. And
It
what
is
are you doing?
not getting, and then you are expanding the light.
And expanding the prana in you, and you're breathing a new world into being. Where
Holding light, your light field is huge. It's like, didn't you call it Merkabah? It's like, someone told me it's like goes way out, bigger than your house.
So powerful. It
Yeah.
is. We're that powerful. We are, but not when we, based on just the matrix and the agendas and the narratives and all the ways we contract. If we keep biting the bait of that story and we keep giving it our attention and perpetrating those messages on other people, we're perpetuating the lack of breath.
They don't even know they're doing that.
No.
Because they don't know, because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. But people might bounce into this podcast, these messages today, or somebody is dealing with that in their own family, or somebody's listening and saying, I think that might be me that they're talking about. I know when I've listened to other teachers and people over the years, when they talk about something that they know and I don't yet know it, I'm like, that's me. I need, but hearing that, I realized there's another way to be. I can expand my consciousness, and I can start to embody more of what that awareness is. And I can allow that inside myself. And so all of us get the little taps on the shoulder or the podcast.
That's what it is. And there's no judgment.
No judgment.
You're not less than because you're not living in the big picture.
Can you imagine if we really judged all the heroes and all the stories that we've heard over the years? It can be messy. It is messy sometimes. They're not always in pristine white suits with not a speck of mud on them. They get deep in the journey. They embrace it. And so, and sometimes they haven't showered for many days and weeks while they're, trudging along in the journey. And that's part of the way it is. It's beautiful, all of it, when you can see it from the bigger picture. It feels like chaos and a messy storm, or just something very unpleasant and uncomfortable in our lives if we don't have that vision. So our conversations here, I love these. I want to thank you, Renee, for joining me. We'll come back because there's so many more things to share, and every time is a unique expression of source energy through us, every conversation. So the themes might sort of sprinkle through and cycle around, but that's because the themes of the hero's journey are inside all of us. And we're all interested in how to better live that higher light, that living light inside us. And so the conscious breathing and realizing that's where the real prana is, that's where the bigger picture vision is. And when we breathe with source, we're breathing the bigger picture vision for 2020 clear soul sight. And we can also recognize when we're contracting and going deep into that smallness vision. That's not who we are. So if we can be messengers for people listening to our podcast today, that feeds our spirit, that nourishes us, that there's our frequency and our energy and our journeys have purpose in sharing what we've learned. That's what we do. That's what heroes do. They bring it back full circle and they share with people. This is what I learned in some of those journeys. So thank you for sharing some of your wisdom.
Thank you for the invitation.
The journey. And I welcome everybody to visit us at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube and wholesoulmastery.com for inspirations there. But our videos are mostly at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube, and also now at Color the Magic on YouTube as well, because we want these messages to travel far and wide. And if you have people in your life that also would resonate or benefit from these messages, I invite you to like, subscribe, and share these. So until next time, I send everyone blessings. Blessings to you, Renee. Thanks,
Namaste.
everyone. Bye.